What's up, everybody? Welcome to Investing in Cannabis. I'm your host, Brandon David. So in cannabis, we have entered a state of war, a war of software, a soft war, if you will. That's the time you laugh a little bit. So particularly dispensaries, which is still the hub of where all this great legal cannabis comes from. It's just a ripe business opportunity. They have so many needs. They need all these services, many of which a lot of businesses need. But they have specific needs, feature sets, based on the regulations associated with cannabis. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. And we have Ben here from Green Bits. What's up, man? How are you?
Great, I'm doing well.
Thanks for being here. So why don't you just start off and tell us a little bit, what is Green Bits?
Okay, so Green Bits, we build a point of sale, inventory management, and compliance system for dispensaries and marijuana retail stores. Okay, so it's everything from here, like their cash register, running the cash register, all the checkout of all the cannabis, including managing all the back stock, all the front stock, and lastly, actually hooking into the state regulatory controls and actually reporting all of the detailed movements of inventory on their behalf. So
Which is really the secret sauce here, right?
That is definitely, yeah.
So we'll get to that in a minute. Just like, let's pick apart what you said. So the POS, right? This is an iPad that you put in this nice casing here, right?
Yep.
So if you sign up, do you give the iPad? Is that something that they buy? How is that part of the system here?
Yep. So in general, we're a software company. So we spend time building our IP is really in software. Okay, so, but we do sell hardware as well. So when someone signs up, they can pretty much buy this kit right here from us. We sell it through one of our distributors. And so they would just pretty much buy this, install our iPad app. We help them onboard and get trained up all their staff, and then they're good to go to start selling.
Totally. So okay, so the POS, which is pretty standard, like if you use Square or whatever, right? Kind of a similar setup. And then this is actually the cash register part, right? Where like the cash comes out, particularly important cannabis, right? We'll get into that in a second. Cash is everything. And then this prints receipts, right?
Receipt printer.
So pretty basic stuff here, right?
Yep.
And there are a number of companies working on this, right? There are a number of cannabis POS companies out there. Why Green Bits? I mean, what makes you guys just that much more special?
Yep. So, I've spent my career working with small businesses and building software for them to solve their problems, in particular compliance. So I was at Intuit. I worked on QuickBooks as an engineer, which is an accounting and bookkeeping software. It works with compliance and tax compliance. My last business was called Outright. It was a web-based accounting and bookkeeping solution. I've personally started several small businesses and some large ones. So I really understand how to build software really dumbed down so anyone can use it. And with the regulatory controls so complex, you pretty much need very, very simple software if you expect your bud tenders to run your store without you being around and you being stressed out all day long. So our secret sauce is really taking something which is fairly complex, dumbing it down so anyone can do it. And we don't just say it, we actually do it, which is why we can take such large, market share from some of these other competitors who've been in since, 2012.
Yeah, let's talk about market share for a second. I mean, you guys have exploded in Washington State, right? I think when I watched Disrupt, you quoted a 40% number, market penetration. What is it today?
Yeah, so we're just a little bit over 50% today.
And in what time period is that?
So we launched our first store on July 7th, which was the second day that cannabis was legal in Washington.
Wow.
And we grew really slow, you can imagine, through the summertime. And then we started really getting more into sales. And then lately we've been taking a lot of customers from other point of sale systems.
Got it. And how were you so ready to take advantage of that? I mean, the second day in, I mean, you obviously thought about this. I mean, when did you get involved and why? Why get involved?
So it was... I sold my previous company in 2012, and I stayed there for, I stayed at the company that acquired us for a year. And when I left, I was, I took some time off, and then eventually I got bored. In general, I really love building products and building companies. So after about 6 months, I got pretty bored. I have this kind of list.
And what was your contract for? How long were you supposed to be there?
So actually, I could have really left the day after the acquisition.
Oh, really?
So I didn't have any real golden handcuffs. I believed in the vision, and I thought it was a good, it was a good person to acquire the company.
So did you get options in that company, and they just vested immediately, or how did that?
Yeah. So they bought it. It was it was cash and some stock.
Okay.
The company was private. It's now public. So. So I got the cash right away. The stock was just vested already. I had it. And then, of course, you get an option package and like a normal technology company thereafter.
Yeah.
So when I was, I have this idea. So I have this idea list that I always keep. So in general, I'm always very busy. So when I have an idea, I actually talk to my phone. I have Evernote set up, and she's named Eva on my phone. And I'll go, hey, Eva, why does it have to be so painful to do X? And that's like literally all I'll say, and it gets filtered into this folder of ideas. That happened, I might do that for 3 years, and then all of a sudden I actually have time. So I go through and I go, okay, what were all these ideas that I had over time? Well, when I went through that list, there was a bunch of different things I did. I worked on drones for a little bit. There was an idea, testing it. I worked on like making automated sprinkler systems, kind of like the Nest, but for sprinkler systems. And eventually I found a note that said, look at cannabis. And it was mainly just I saw the industry growing, and I said, oh, okay, interesting. I like, in general, to build companies that are disrupting something or in a new industry, right? So I saw that note. The next day I found in Washington, they actually had this whole conference where it was people interested in being licensed there. There were lawyers, there were accountants, there were BioTrack was there, like all these people were there. So I got a ticket the next day, flew up to Washington, did a 3-day seminar. It was very hands-on. I met real owners of dispensary owners, growers, all of these guys. And pretty much what I saw is an industry that's coming about that has compliance that I've just never ever seen in any other industry. It's more complex than pretty much anything I've ever seen.
Totally.
And it's very normal small business folks. And most small business folks have a hard time like running payroll and paying taxes, like very, like stuff that's fairly common. And these guys have a burden of traceability, which is a whole nother ballgame. So I immediately saw that, and then I started seeing the software, and you saw, that time I saw BioTrack, and I started asking people what they use, and a lot of the software is just, it's pretty complex. It does a lot of stuff. It's doing grow software as well as like processing as well as retail, and I immediately in my head just like had a picture of, okay, like this is how I think we can simplify this, and started just coming with ideas, and that's pretty much how the idea got started. From there, I'm a technical, I'm both an entrepreneur, but I'm technical. So coded up a bit, started showing it to customers,
Got it.
I started showing it to other engineers of Outright, and then eventually what I did is Washington had a list of all the people applying for licenses. So I was like, okay, before we invest too much in this, let's email and pitch them.
Yeah.
So, or actually,
a little
mail.
customer development.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what we did, I actually still have the original brochure. So we took a paper brochure, mailed it to, about 200, kept it small at first, got inbound interest, and pretty much like through PowerPoint, it was our designs. I was pitching our software and selling it and just saying, we haven't built it yet, but this is how it's going to work.
Wireframes, basically.
Yep, here's our background, this is why you should trust us. And I was able to get actual deposits.
Wow.
Our early customers bought before we even had software because they just believed in what we were going to do.
Wow.
They believed in our vision.
And they believed in you.
Yeah, and they saw our track record.
Yeah.
So they knew that we were serious.
So you're a successful founder with an exit to a good-sized company, right? Presumably you made a nice chunk of change, and you identify cannabis as this great space. Talk a little bit about that breakthrough moment you were talking about a little bit with the burden of traceability and why that's so important.
So it's the reason it's so complex is it's something that they have to do on a daily basis, and it gets distributed across every team members. So it's some reporting is you have a CPA and they have to do it every quarter. Well, okay, that's a burden, but you can kind of hire one person and once a quarter deal with that headache. But immediately I saw traceability was you have to. There's a couple key things. One is it's daily. Like you have to literally send all your inventory levels and sales every single day. So that's huge. The other is it's directly tied to almost every person in the business, from anyone who manages inventory or is selling or is ordering. So so it touches every role in a retail business, and so that creates a heavy burden as well. And then the other piece is that the state looks at this retail store differently than you do, so it's a different perspective. And so to give a concrete example, like if you went to a grocery store and I bought this and there was this bottle of water, like this bottle of water has a SKU and they all have the same SKU in the store. But cannabis, what looks like the same product to someone on the shelf is actually different to the state. And that's because they track it all the way down to the seed or to the plant.
Right.
And so to a bud tender behind, they're just going to pick this up And this is not this SKU, it's a different SKU. That's what the state cares about. So that right there, that translation is extremely complex and time consuming.
So we have two virtually identical plants of Purple Kush.
Exactly.
Same strain, everything. You put it in the baggie, it looks identical. But to the state, those are totally unique items.
Exactly. And so, and you have to report the sale on each plant. So you can't just go through at the end of the day and count your inventory and go, oh, okay, this is how it changed, or count your numbers. You actually have to look at it and go, okay, we sold this many from this plant, this many from that plant, and it goes all the way down into edibles. So it's highly complex to do.
And how were dispensaries doing this before they started using it?
So, well, in Washington, there were none. I mean, we were like, when we had that first store, it was the very first time they ever had to deal with traceability. In Colorado, they still have to do it manually. There is still not a system that does this for them.
Because it's not allowed?
Because the state, into traceability, they don't have an API, so no one can programmatically hook into it. And then Oregon's coming up. They still don't have to do a traceability yet. So a lot of the Oregon dispensaries don't realize what's coming their way yet because it's happening later this year.
Yeah. And what do you think of the value of this concept of traceability? I mean, I get where the concept comes from, right, to try to remove the black market element getting into it. But do you think that's a real concern? And even though your business is built on it, is that law going to stand? Is that relevant as we move into the future?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's an interesting question. There's a stigma in the industry, right? So you're going from the black market or the gray market in some cases, to the white, and so there's a lot of hesitance for people, right? And there's a lot of valid points here, right? Like, so I can guarantee organized crime, and would come in if they didn't do certain, didn't things to block it. There really would be, like in Washington, there's a glut of product right now. Well, most of those people would divert that stuff into the black market. Some of them would, right? And so this does prevent some of that and creates a little bit of warm and fuzzies. And over time, as the industry matures and grows, right, like the risk profile changes and people know what's happening. So, in 10 years from now, is traceability still going to be around? I don't know. I do know now, though, that like
super relevant,
very relevant. Every single state that's California, now it's in 2018 that traceability will be in California. Every single state that has legalized or has legalized medical after that has done traceability as well.
And do you think that law, combined with other like banking restrictions and whatnot, are set up to help dispensaries fail in a way, right? I mean, are they created to be so complicated that they're prohibitive?
Bureaucracies in general that I found, it's not a mastermind behind it.
Yeah.
It's not like it's,
Fair enough.
It's not a
giving them too much credit.
Yeah, like it's usually, there's these concerns, well this, and then they cobble it together and all of a sudden it's a Frankenstein a bit. That's more how I've seen at least things tend to mature. So each point that they're trying to address is most likely a relevant concern that they probably should be thinking about. Now the collection of how it came together is going to be more of a hodgepodge, But then after that comes into place, I would assume then that people who are against cannabis being legal are then trying to turn those knobs to put a wrench, to prevent growth.
A little earmark or whatever, make it just a little harder.
Yeah, but then people who want to see the industry grow are doing the exact opposite, right?
Sure. Right. Yeah. So you come across this list of early legal dispensaries in Washington. Right? How do you come across that list? Is that public? Is that published somewhere? Or?
Yeah, so at the time, it still is. It's actually, just like liquor licenses, you can actually contact the state and it's public information that will give you a list of them. I mean, you can even actually get the applications. There's a lot of stuff that you can get.
Got it.
So all of the various states, you can go and get a list of them. And then,
But at the time, it was a little bit of a hot tip, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, and not only that, like, the fact that, we're a software company, it helps, and we've dealt with data. So I'll give you a quick example. So they publish a list every single week. And so we do lots of tricks to predict who's going to get licensed. So the list is every single person who applied for a license. And then it will tell you when they got a license.
Oh, wow.
But the next question is, well, of those 1,000, which 2 are going to get a license next week? And so we actually pull the list. We have software that pulls the list every single week. Diffs changes, has an algorithm that will do predictions on who's getting licensed next, and we only target a subset of them.
And how accurate is it?
It's pretty accurate. I mean, we got, we're getting, better and better at it.
Got it. And so one of these dispensaries gets flagged using your software, right? And then you must have a pretty robust sales team at this point. I mean, what is that process like?
So it's one person. It was
Really?
originally me.
Wow.
So word of mouth helps. So after you get a certain market penetration, like the word gets out what you do, right? So the burden on sales starts to go down
If
a
you're
bit.
doing it better than everybody else.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have great, not only great product but great service. So like all the pieces coming together. So that definitely helps now. But early on, I mean, it's mainly if you have a list of 100 people to talk to. I mean, you can just have a salesperson talk to all 100. Like, it's really not all that time consuming.
Yeah.
And then when they see what you're doing and it's very different than what anyone else is doing, and people when we demo our software, it's immediately obvious to them about how much easier it is.
Yeah. And why is it so much easier? I mean, I've never been a bud tender, right? But I'm fairly familiar. There's a lot of different options out there, the Flow Hubs of the world, MMJ Menu, MJ Free, et cetera. What makes it more intuitive? Is it just based on your technology background and how it's been designed, or what makes it better? I guess. Is the question.
The one thing that we did that a lot of the incumbents that have market share haven't done is we started the company with traceability in mind. So every piece of the product is built around the fact that there's traceability. Now what's interesting is now that we're like 18 months in, we've made it so it works in other industries. Like we run some t-shirt stores and stuff of our customers as well. But originally it was very focused, and we built our inventory controls around it, the way you sell product, even the way you barcode. Like this barcode here is not like a product SKU, it actually embeds the plant identifier inside of it.
Got it.
And why is that interesting? Is because remember, before, if they pull it off the shelf, they're going to have to type in like the plant number.
Yeah.
Well, do you want, so if you think of your retail store,
which is like a 16-digit.
it's a 16-digit number. In Colorado, it's 26. Wow. Okay. So do you want if you think of your store, the frontline people are the bud tenders. You want them knowledgeable about the product, talking to customer service. Do you want them to become experts on traceability and understanding the plant loss? Like, you don't want them to understand any of that crap. Just like we want you to sell product. And so the way we really dumbed it down is you pick it up and you scan it like a grocery store or a Target. And we do all the stuff internally. They don't have to do anything else.
So when you add a product, does it also print out the barcode for you? Or how does that?
Yeah, so originally we were the only people doing this. Yeah. So yes, when people received the product into the store, they would then, for each lot number, that's what it's called, the plant, okay? They would then print out a barcode. But we've become popular enough where now all the producers just do it. So we used our retailers to push down on the producer processors.
Okay.
So, I don't know if, I know some archaic retail facts. So in the 70s, this is exactly how UPC codes were created. And UPC code is literally the barcode that you see on almost every product in a grocery store. So the grocery stores got together and they created a consortium, and they said, if you want us to sell your product, you put a barcode on it, and here is the specs. And they even have fines. Like if it comes in and it's out of spec, that vendor will get fined. I mean, that's how strict they are.
Isn't that like antitrust shit though? Like, isn't that illegal to?
No, they just say, look, if you want us to buy your product, you have to have this because we can then get major efficiencies and sell your product.
Sure.
And we're just not going to sell your product if it doesn't fit these standards.
Got it.
Well, so that's essentially what a lot of our retailers ended up doing. Is there's so much pushback on these brands, and in Washington, there's all these producer processors with these new products coming on to market, and they're all fighting for position in a store. So you want to be the one. You want to make sure you're the one that's easy for them, right? So now all that, and the other interesting thing is they're already doing all this. They're already doing labeling per order already. So all they had to do, we just had to teach them to say, when you're already printing that label, also put this barcode on, and bam.
Right. And then that's saving them how much time? I mean, so much time. Can you even calculate it?
No, it's very difficult to calculate. But yeah, I mean, you can see, like we took, Uncle Ike's is one of our customers. They're a very large store in Seattle, Washington. And they have 10 cash registers now. And their lines just buzz through with ours. And before, what they were using, like manually typing things in and the mistakes behind it, and then manually, it was a huge headache. And now their lines go way fast, move a lot faster.
But not just a pain in the ass, right? I mean, truly dangerous.
Oh yeah, because what happens is if you start selling under the wrong plant identifier, then all your reports on inventory are wrong. And the state audits, they'll come in and audit. They'll randomly come to your store and say, we randomly picked 10 plant identifiers. And it says you have 50 of these, 20 of these, 40 of those. Let's go find them. and they do their counts.
That's got to be a fun day.
Exactly. So, that's essentially, and then if you're out, they're like, okay, that's a fine. If it happens again, it's a higher fine. Eventually, you'll get your license pulled.
Wow. So you're literally saving cannabis businesses.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's like what we want to do, and that's our vision for all the areas for traceability. And then when the traceability, if it ever goes away, then that will go away, and we will be, by that point, we'll
be a brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So so think of it. That's how I think of it. Is like, you really want to nail the pain really, really well. It gets you into the stores. It gets our product out there. And then we learn all the other secrets.
Yeah.
At this point, that part we've already kind of figured out in Washington. Yeah. And we have it pretty much figured out in Colorado and Oregon. And we're just waiting to start, scaling those pieces. But now we are on to all the really interesting things, which is all the other, now that we're in the store, we really see all the stuff that they actually want.
Yeah. So the most obvious transition that I noticed, probably because I work for a company that makes delivery software, is there is no online menu currently, right? Is that something that you've considered, kind of branching out into that space?
Yep. So, it's like there's always this decision you have to make, like how much do you want to build and how much do you want to partner, and how, or just acquire, maybe buy or license something, right? Yeah. So that's the decision we made there. There's some really good companies, right? So if you think of it like purely just menus or listing, you have Leafly and Weed Maps, and so we're talking to them about working with them. Like, do we really want to like compete against them, right? Like that's not really. We're not going to start there, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing a pretty good job, but there are a bunch of other pieces, like in-store menus is a very popular item for our customers as well.
Right, but if a dispensary is doing delivery, right? They do need something else, right? So are you recommending that they use a certain other online menu, or how do you handle that?
Well, so question? Washington, there's no deliveries.
Correct. Yeah, but that's coming down the pipe, right? I mean, you are in Oregon and California currently, or you're
no. So in Oregon we have customers there that we're doing beta programs and learning differences and making sure that everything's nailed down. Yeah. We're not in anywhere in California, and then the same thing in Colorado.
Yeah, got it.
And and that's exactly. So we've been talking. I don't know. Did you have the Baker guys on? Well, anyway, so we've been talking to. Okay, yeah. So we've been talking to a couple companies about that as well.
Yeah, got it. Cool. So you've had tremendous growth in Washington, and then why there and not in the other states that are legal, and why is it kind of siloed still?
Yep. And so I've just found to build a business, you like businesses aren't built like all at once, right? It's like. You're building the cliche, the foundation, then the next floor. So it was kind of when looking at it, like, where are we going to start? Well, one is I want to be going to where I see the future of the industry moving towards, right? So at the time of starting Green Bits, like Washington, like you saw Colorado and what they did, and then you saw Washington kind of follow, and then you saw Oregon, and they're talking about the same things, and so you're seeing all these pieces, and you could see kind of where it's going, okay? So, and then Colorado at the time is heavily entrenched, right? So there's all these other competitors there already, and you would have to switch stores. Like switching a store is extremely complex and time consuming and costly, okay? So I didn't want to, why would we start in Colorado where it's super, it's going to be difficult to get people out, and our software is barely working at this point because it's the very first iteration of it. So Washington to me was just, it's a green field, right? It's like complete, at the time, there was none of the rec stores there. The other thing, none of the rec stores there. It had traceability, which I believe, like that's what we believe where it's going.
Central, yeah.
And then the other thing that we knew is the way they licensed, they were growing slow. So like Colorado, what they did is they took all the medical stores and they said, hey, you could open a rec on this date. So you see January 1st, all of a sudden there was like all these rec stores open. Washington, they said, look, we're going to have 350 licenses, and then every month we'll license 5. So the reason I like that is because I'm not losing market share, right? So I can choose, out of those 5, I'm going to choose 2 of the ones that are willing to bet on us, and let's work with them. And okay, I lost 3 because we can't handle them yet. Well, that's okay, I lost 3 the next month. And then by the time we were ready to go is when the state is already scaling.
Consistent with your own ramp.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. So we're not missing market. So we didn't miss any of that stuff. And now we're just going back and collecting all the people that we missed early on.
That's so fascinating, and I think that's one of the tenets that's really missing in cannabis today. I mean, you're taking your experience from building another company in technology, right, and applying some of those concepts here. And I think a lot of times in cannabis, founders are moving so quickly, right, that they're not doing a good job of basically what you're doing, right, is like saying, hey, we're going to do a really good job in Washington, and then we're going to use that as a model to sort of branch out, right?
Yep.
I think there's a lot of companies that won't be named that are going that are going a little fast these days.
Yeah, and that's what you see happens is then all the quality drops down, all the customer service, and then everyone hates them. You cannot get, like, it's very difficult to change someone's perception of you. It's like, so if you've already burned someone and then someone else heard about it, like, it's very difficult to get those people back on board. And I'm more, let's build a great company, great software, and then use that the opposite way to accelerate our growth, to use that as an advantage or leverage to get into new markets now. So now once we go into, we're a little bit in Oregon, but once we really launch there, right, now we have right on the border, all of those stores use Green Bits, and so now it's go look at them.
Yep.
And we're doing all the stuff that the state just implemented. It's brand new to you guys. We've been doing that for 18 months already.
Yeah.
And our product was designed around that. Like, we're ready.
Got it. So let's step back a little bit to formation. So you get this list. You have a target of how many dispensaries is the first.
Originally, it was 350.
350. And how many of those do you reach out to? How many do you sign up?
Yeah. So it's kind of like all the, of course, the devil's in the details. There's a lot of complication around that 350.
Sure.
So there still aren't even 350 stores in Washington. Okay, so like that original list of 350 still have not all been licensed. So what they did is they took, there was like 2,000 applications for 350 slots. Then they did a lottery to rank positions. And then there's a lot of people that applied that weren't serious or didn't have locations, so they're getting dropped off. And so that's what the state's working down. So there's about 225 licensed at this point, and they're licensing, approximately 20 to 30 a month at this point. Is the way it works. So they still haven't hit 350. But what's interesting is they just upped the cap. So now there's not 350 cap. It's actually going to be higher, and they're rolling medical into the same regulations.
Interesting.
That happens July 1st.
So is there a moment after you do, I don't know, your 10th sales call, right, that you're like, shit, this is going to work? Do you have that moment?
Yeah. So it's, I'm a very iterative thinker, so it's like, what's the next milestone? Okay, that worked. What's the next milestone? So, yeah, like early on, the fact that, when pitching to someone with a PowerPoint, that they're so connected to what you're doing that they're willing to pay, and they're willing to pay more than competitors. I'm like, okay, we're on to something. I'll put a little bit more money in. And then you start going, you're like, now you're actually outselling it. And, so now you have 5 people using it, and they're telling you they love it, tweak this and that. I'm like, okay, great. Let's put some more money in. So like, that's essentially what we've been doing, and then at some point you're like, okay, like this is really working.
Yeah.
And so, and that's like, that's pretty much where we are now. We're like, okay, this is clearly working. Now the question is can we do it in other markets in parallel at the same exact time while keeping quality high?
Right, yeah. Massive challenge.
Yep.
You talked about repeatedly putting in money at the right times, right? When you saw it growing. What's particularly interesting about your startup is it's all your money, right? So, first of all, that means you really believe in it, right? If you're putting your own money into something. It's also a great signal as far as any founder, right? You're not a first-time founder. That's a big deal. But you haven't had the need to have any investors, right? Why make that decision?
So one nice thing about doing a startup before, right, is that it's nice when you start a company. You're kind of by yourself, and everyone's going, you're crazy, there's all these competitors, you're never going to beat them. It's very like, people are kind of beating down your vision all the time. So it feels really good when you raise money. You're like, oh, see, someone believes in us.
I told you I was right.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah. But a lot of people get so focused on that they're not, like, build a good business. Like, raising money does not mean that you have a good business. It means that you got someone to invest inside of into your company. And so I kind of had that. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what investors are going to give us. I know what pressure. There's downsides of getting investors. Okay, like if we got investors when we started Green Bits, the pressure is going to be grow like crazy. And you're like, the market's not even big. There's 350 of them. Like, how fast can I grow?
Totally.
What am I going to do with the cash? And so I'm lucky to be in the position where we have some cash to put in. Okay, so that's one. So I didn't have a dire need. But I stepped back, and if you look at Green Bits and what we we actually sell a real product and people pay money for it. So, and most of them pay annually, like 65 to 70% of our customers pay up front for the year. So cash flow is really good, so every time we sell it, we're getting the whole year up front.
And projections are easy too.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So you can start modeling this stuff. Now, that's a type of business that you don't need tons of cash. It's not like I had to put in tons of money.
Yeah.
Now, early on, so Trey's another co-founder. He put in some money, and then Andrew's another co-founder, and he put in sweat equity early. So early on we had all three of us, and now that we're growing, it's
and they're engineers, correct?
Yep,
so
engineers.
So they built this, so that's also another cost that you didn't incur. Directly. Right?
Early on, and there was and they were outright engineers, so already like awesome engineers and good business thinkers as well. They have the whole.
Got it.
So that's kind of So that's kind of how it got started and how we thought about putting in money. And at this point, we're just about cash flow positive. We were cash flow positive last month. We'll be cash flow positive this month. But we're still not like there where we're consistently going to be cash flow positive yet.
And can you foresee a time where you would want to raise money?
Yeah. So kind of back to that. Yeah. Like why didn't, that's why we didn't raise money, is because I believed in the idea. It's continually getting validated, and the cash flow is reasonable.
Yeah.
So you could see it on there, like, oh, we can get here.
Yeah, and software is really high margin to begin with, right? I mean.
Yep. Yeah. And once it's built, right? Like your R&D is really expensive, but once that thing's built, it's just So, but there comes a point where okay, let me step back. So for growth, right? You want to grow at the maximum pace necessary to beat all your competitors, right? And growing much faster is actually kind of a waste of resources, truthfully. Like you want to grow as fast as you can. So, but when the market's small, I don't need all this cash to grow, right? We were growing at the clip we needed to. Now, 2016 is going to be an interesting year, right? So now we have, Colorado, more than 1,000, so if you think of what our addressable market right now, we're going from, currently it's 225. Well, that's going to 900 in Washington. Then you have Oregon coming online. There's already, there's going to be probably about 1,000 there. And then you have Colorado that we're going after. It's another 1,500. So our if you think of the size that have changed just there. And so then the next thing is, okay, well, how much cash do I need to acquire all those customers? And if, and you don't have to acquire them all in 1 month, right? It's over time, and you have to be beating your competitors. So what is that pace that we have to be at? And it's possible that pace requires some cash. And if that's the case, then we would probably raise it.
Cash in terms of back end, like support, infrastructure, salespeople. What would that cash be used for to grow faster?
Yeah. So mainly it's mainly sales. Okay. So we have I'm a numbers person, so every one of our numbers is in a spreadsheet. Like, so cost to acquire a customer, we know exactly what it costs. We have it all modeled out, how long it takes us to earn that money back. So it's mainly that. How much does it cost to acquire a customer? And
you share any of that stuff, CAC, LTV, or that's not public?
No, I haven't shared any of that yet. I will at some point, actually. Just not today, but.
I mean, I think I'm not encouraging you to share. It's fascinating because you've done such a good job at it, right? I mean, you just told me you only had one sales guy, and you're 50% penetration in the state of Washington. That's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, and so some numbers I'll give is like, we from acquiring a customer, we break even after 5 months. So it takes 5 months to get that cash back. We've never lost a customer still, so 0% churn rate.
Wow.
So things, the metrics and the
That's
unit
so
economics
incredible.
look
I just
great.
have to go back for a second. You've yet to lose a customer.
Yeah. Yep. Never.
Wow. And is that because there aren't enough competitors out there yet? Is there anyone challenging those businesses, or it just repeatedly is better?
Yeah, so there are definitely people challenging it, or attempting to, and we're still just further ahead. Now, in our product, you can't say it's perfect. Like, it's not perfect. We're striving for perfection, right? So every month we're trying to get better and better and better. And so, like if I don't think it would be impossible to build a better product than ours right now. I just currently, like in these markets,
You're ahead.
We're ahead, and we're going to do everything we can to stay ahead and to continue to invest and to create a kick-ass product. I mean, that's I'm constantly thinking about it, listening to our customers, trying to get engineers to pull it off, all of that stuff, while keeping the business together with the wheels on falling off.
Yeah, it brings up a really interesting question that I ask founders pretty consistently, but like, what does your day look like? I mean, when you wake up, what do you do all day?
So my role, I bounce around a ton.
Yeah.
So in general, I work on whatever's the most critical thing that other people can't work on yet, really. And I try to protect the team a lot. So we have an engineering team. We have 3 engineers. And so I really try to protect their time to make sure that they're not getting overwhelmed with like support requests or sales requests, so they can build out the product. So that's one thing that I do, and I'll shield them. So it could be, helping out on the sales side if necessary, closing bigger accounts if necessary, helping on difficult problems. Lately, I've been working on automating accounting and billing. Like that's something. So I'm looking at like what do we need to grow? Here are the bottlenecks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on some of those pieces.
Got it.
So it really changes every day. But the one thing my schedule is generally the same. I tend to work out of a coffee shop in the morning, plan my day, catch up on like email, figure out what the highest ROI things for me to work on, and then usually the rest of the day is just executing. I have a family, so I tend to work 2 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week till 10 at night. So I'll work from 8:30 till 10 at night, and then the other days I tend to come home around 7.
Got it. Listen up, guys. That's what it takes here, right? We're talking about 14-hour days to get 50% penetration in Washington, for sure. So another thing that helped your growth, but maybe in a different way than most people realize, is you chose to participate in TechCrunch Disrupt, which is a conference that I'm pretty familiar with. I used to be a part of the team that put on the Launch Festival, which is their competitor here in San Francisco, but massive startup competition here, right? So, and primarily I think people go there for a couple reasons. One is to get exposure, and it tends to be a lot of consumer exposure, right? Download this app, try this new on-demand food, whatever. The second is investment, right? And so I'm kind of curious why you chose to go down that road, because you weren't looking for investors, and I'm guessing that there weren't a lot of dispensary owners sitting in the audience of Disrupt, right?
Yeah. So I want to be ahead of where we need to be. And we always had in the plan that 2016 is going to be a huge year for us, okay? Because I believe that's the market's going to start growing faster than we could probably grow on our cash flow. So, and I think this is the year. I'm not positive yet. And so we got, I can't remember, someone said, oh, Disrupt on the team. And I'm like, oh, do you guys want to do it? And we kind of said, no, we're too busy doing these other things. Yep. Well, we were at a conference in Colorado, and they extended the deadline, and I happened to see the email, and it was like, today's the final day. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And then they're like, we should just shoot a video real quick. We already had the point of sale set up because it was at a conference. Yep. So we literally right then said, okay, what are we going to say? And we just filmed it right there on a phone. Wow. And then that night we submitted it. We met it by the deadline, probably 1 minute before the deadline, you know what I mean? Yeah. And we were just like, whatever, we'll just see. And then we ended up getting in, and I was like, oh, cool. So we actually got in. So the real idea for Disrupt is that the real challenges for like cannabis related businesses is credibility, really. Like because it's been on the black market for so long, it's hard to get true credibility. Like, you're like, oh, I'm building a point of sale and it's directed towards cannabis. And people go, what are you, a stoner? Right. Like, which is kind of, if you think about it, it's ridiculous. Like if you build it towards, for a liquor store, what are you, an alcoholic? It just doesn't make any 100%. Sense. Like, so, and that still occurs all the time. So what I wanted to do is to prove to really the investment community and to entrepreneurs and the real people that are going to TechCrunch Disrupt that this is not a stoner movement with a bunch of stoner companies. This is a real industry that's growing right in front of you, and you guys are going to miss out if you don't start looking at it more seriously. Yeah, no, I really saw it as a watershed moment for cannabis. I was in the audience that day when you pitched, and like when any cannabis company comes on stage, the first couple minutes are filled with giggles, right? And people make jokes about a budding industry and all this innuendo and all this other stupid bullshit that's not helping the industry. But then as you continue to talk and explain the real challenge associated that we just discussed mainly, the room got very quiet and they got very, very interested in a hurry. And I think it was a huge credibility, not only to you, but to how far the industry has come, that now we have
the traditional investors paying attention and looking at this not as a lifestyle choice or business, but as a real business, an investable business. And I kind of commend you for that because it was a cool moment for me, like being in the audience saying, wow, this is, my two worlds have sort of come together in a way.
Okay, after pitching, like, do you know how many judges came up afterwards going like, when you first started, I was like, come on, what is this thing? And they're like, I have to know more. Yeah. You've got to tell me more.
Well, because on the surface it seems hokey, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to make a POS for X, right? For weed. Just like I'm going to make an Uber for cats, whatever, But when you dive into it, it's not so much a POS system as a traceability system, right? Which is the far more important piece of this. But tell me a little bit more about your Disrupt experience. I mean, what are the days following like? The couple days after.
Well, one, it's more work than I originally realized when we signed up. Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, I think we would still probably do it if I knew, but
just in terms of rehearsals.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the pitches are very, to do a 6-minute pitch where people actually understand something, it's fairly complex what we're doing, and there's market nuances.
And if you have no concept of that market.
Exactly. So it's a lot of work. We probably went through 15 different decks to get to finally where we were at. Multiple rehearsals. And then just, it's just grueling when you're doing all that, plus growing the business and supporting it. And that's already a ton of work. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's just, but it really helps. I always love this, like board meetings after raising capital. I loved board meetings. It's like an opportunity to step back and to think at a more strategic level at the whole industry and where are you fitting. And so that really did help the whole team, actually, because I was practicing in front of them, and like it got us all thinking like, okay, where are we? Where is this position?
And fired up, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, exactly. And we, I of course, I'm competitive, so we were there to win it. That's really what we wanted to do. And
were you nervous, or do you have any stage fright? Or?
Yeah, well, so I mean, I speak at events, and I think it's normal to get nerves. So I definitely had nerves. It was actually more, it was a little bit strange because the audience is so dead. That was actually the more disturbing. Like, I'm used to like people engaging. And when I went out, it was like the whole first rows are all pressed, just like working. And it was, so the second time I pitched, I was like, okay, don't look at the first couple rows, just pretend no one's there. Right. So.
Yeah, and then so you come off stage and everybody says, "Oh, you did a great job," right? The question and answer. You guys really should go watch it. It's pretty interesting, and you'll learn a lot about what we're talking about here too. But then, does your inbox just get flooded? I mean, I know I sent you an email. So
yeah, actually, I mean, I feel bad. Like, email is starting to become a problem for me, right? It's like I'm just getting so many emails, and our team is so small. So people from partnering to investing to working there, it's just flooded, and it's really overwhelming. So I mean, I tend to always break my to-do list system. Like I'll do, it'll get all organized, and I can keep on top of it. And then eventually, I get even more crap coming in, and it breaks it, and then I have to reorganize. So it did enough where I had to completely revamp my to-do system once again.
And what's probably the best thing that came out of that? I mean, is there a partnership, or I mean, you're not raising money, which is the big thing with Disrupt usually.
Oh, but okay, so I'm not raising money, but it got me in touch with all the investors interested, and it's people. I mean, people are offering us money all the time. Of course, like so I have investor calls, and they're like, oh, we're interested in investing right now. What do we have to do? And I'm just like, well, we're not looking for investment yet, but hold on, because we're ready. I'll reach out to you. So it built all the connections that I need. So what I really want is, by the time I see, hey, it's time to hit the gas pedal, like I want to be able to go out and raise capital already. So for these investors, I'm providing updates already. I'm talking to them already. So it's really just I'm doing laying all the foundation on the pre-work. So by the time we need it, we know. The other thing is that I want just like I want the best engineers and the best product people, I want the best investors, the one that are going to unlock the doors. So, I want people that are in the payment industry. So when Visa, MasterCard starts changing their mind, or the federal, banking laws change, I've got, the person who knows how to unlock every single key there. Yeah. Or lock. And so so I want the best of the best, and the easiest thing to do is just keep talking to them, and you can find out who's going to add strategic value.
And do you want strategic value? You mentioned the banking side, which is fascinating.
That's one side.
But do you want more strategic value on the cannabis side or on the tech side? Right? 'Cause that's your background, right? So, I mean, do you have more to learn in that side, or, what's the most strategic value for you?
So I think it's both. Yeah, so it's both. So, definitely the cannabis space, but there's some major players in cannabis, but there's no one who can unlock like
of course.
There's not like someone who is so large that if you got them as an investor, it's like, I'm in every retail store.
Yeah.
There isn't someone that exists like it yet. Now there's some larger people that are well-known names that you can get on board. But in the tech industry, there really are people like that. You can go on and say, if you have this person, so for Outright, for example, we had Mark Andreessen invested in as an angel investor in Outright. And we had to do a deal.
Outright's your previous company.
Yeah, sorry, yes. Sold. Yeah, that's my previous company that I sold. And we wanted to do this deal with eBay. So, Mark Andreessen's on the board of eBay. So we just
talk about juice. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like originally contacting them, it was going to take 6 months to do anything. After an introduction, it took a day. Literally a day.
Of course. Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that really help. Maybe for shortcuts is another good one too. Like people who have done similar industry or similar sales models can just tell you like, here, of these 20 options, let me tell you pros and cons of each. So now instead of trying all 20 to find out the optimum, you just like narrowed it down. Yeah,
I mean, if we're talking about Andreessen Horowitz, like they have in-house recruiters, they can have like an SDR for you, right? They offer all these services.
Oh yeah, and then and so first round capital they invested in. They do CEO days, CTO days. They help with hiring. I mean, they're amazing, the amount of resources they give you. And then
you see the first round Christmas.
Yeah, I've been in that twice.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, they did a really good job this
year. They're always fun.
Yeah. So you're out here in San Francisco. You're from the Bay Area originally, right? And you still live in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Again, when are we coming to California? Right, I know 2018 is traceability.
Yeah.
Is that when you'll look to do it here, or prior to that?
Most likely prior, because when you're thinking of a point of sale and inventory, there's just so many pieces to get right that when we started, we had to get the traceability like rock solid and a couple other, the checkout really great. Yep. But now we pretty much have a lot of the pieces nailed down. And it's starting to work in all these different cases. So now it can not only work with traceability, it can run, like I was saying, like a pipe, so it runs like t-shirts and paraphernalia shops now. So it can do that as well. Well, then we can clearly start doing medical in California.
Sure.
So we'll definitely come here sooner than that. Once it's really a step, like what's more important to us, Colorado and Oregon or California? Well, California is extremely critical. It's just not yet. We're just not working on that yet.
Not there yet. Cool, man. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us here. And evidently, we cut through your email noise, which I'm happy to hear. So, promote some stuff here. Are you big on Twitter? Do you tweet? I know you're B Curren at B Curren.
Yeah. So you can follow me at B Curren.
Do you tweet or?
No, I don't tweet really a ton. I'm always thinking of how to build a better company. So I tend to be very inward focused. I mean, you can email me Ben at Green Bits if you want to shout out, or like let me know what you're up to.
And is there anybody that you want to hear from? Like anybody in particular that or kind of person that you're looking to hear for? You're hiring maybe? Or
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, so we're always like, we are building the best cannabis point of sale product. So if you're interested, if you're a technologist, if you're into product, marketing, sales, we're looking for the best people. And definitely reach out because that's exactly what we need to build a great company and a great culture inside our company.
Awesome. Well, guys, this has been fun. We are investingincannabis.tv, at CannabisPod on Twitter, at CannabisPod on Instagram. Check us out on Mass Roots. We're making a big push on Mass Roots. You do any Mass Roots? Isaac and the gang over there?
Yeah, I've met them. We don't do much there yet either.
Yeah. I mean, you're B2B, right? It's a little different. Guys, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.